You like my man? He turn you on? Y'all keep sliding up on them pictures. Y'all's family gonna be singing them church songs.
Is in mourning days after the mother of two young boys was killed in what police believe was a domestic violence situation.
As WDRB's Katrina Nickel tells us tonight, friends and family do not want her to be remembered as a victim.
Springfield, Kentucky, is the kind of town where everyone knows each other. It's quiet, safe, and far from the chaos of big cities. Crime is rare, and life moves at a slow, familiar pace. But on the night of December 27, 2024, everything changed. A violent crime unfolded behind the doors of a home on Claybrook Avenue. Gunshots shattered the silence. And by the time the night was over, a woman was dead, her mother was critically injured, and a dangerous man was on the run. The man responsible, 23-year-old Roosevelt Davis III, had no ties to Springfield. He had come from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, bringing violence with him. Just days earlier, he had robbed a bank in his hometown. With stolen money, he armed himself and set off on a journey that would lead to murder. His target that night was Kadesha Burch, a 31-year-old woman who had no idea that death was coming to her doorstep. Inside the house, her mother, Frances Campbell, 52, was with her. They had no warning, no chance to escape. Davis forced his way inside. What happened next lasted only moments but left permanent scars. He fired 10 shots. Kadesha was hit multiple times and died in her own home. Frances, wounded but alive, lay helpless. Davis didn't stop to check. He didn't wait. He disappeared into the night, leaving behind a crime scene that would shock an entire town. Neighbors, startled by the sound of gunfire, rushed outside. Some tried to understand what had just happened. Others grabbed their phones and called the police. Minutes later, officers arrived. Inside, they found Kadesha lifeless on the floor. Frances was still breathing, but she needed immediate medical attention. Paramedics rushed her to the hospital as police secured the area. The investigation had begun, but one question remained. Who was Roosevelt Davis, and why had he come all this way to kill? Many of you enjoy our true crime stories, but haven't subscribed yet. If you find our content engaging and insightful, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support not only encourages us, but also helps spread awareness and make a difference in people's lives. Before we begin, drop a comment below. Where are you watching from? What are your thoughts as this story unfolds? Because your voice matters. These are real lives, real tragedies, and real lessons that we can't afford to ignore. Welcome to True Crime Tales, where we uncover the stories that lurk in the shadows, the crimes that shake communities, the betrayals no one saw coming, and the horrifying truths hidden behind closed doors. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss the twists, the revelations, and the chilling reality of the cases we bring to you every day. Now let's begin. Kadesha Burch was known as a kind and friendly person. She always had a smile on her face. She loved talking to people and making new friends. No matter who she met, she treated them with kindness. She never saw anyone as a stranger. People in Springfield knew her well. They would see her in town, always being polite and respectful. If someone needed help, Kadesha was there. She believed in treating people the right way. Kadesha was very close to her mother, Frances Campbell. They shared a strong bond. Frances loved her daughter deeply, and Kadesha loved her mother just as much. She was also loved by her community. Her friends and neighbors spoke highly of her. People trusted her and enjoyed being around her. Kadesha had big dreams for her future. She wanted to build a good life for herself and her family. She was working towards a stable and successful career. She wanted to achieve great things. She believed in hard work and staying positive. No matter what happened in life, she always looked ahead with hope. Kadesha's kindness left a mark on many people. She was not famous, but in her small town, she was important. People remembered her smile, her warmth, and her kindness. Roosevelt Davis III was a 23-year-old man from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He was not famous, and most people did not know his name before the crime. He did not have a good life. He made bad choices and got into trouble. His actions led him down a dangerous path, and one day, he committed a terrible crime that shocked two states, Wisconsin and Kentucky. Roosevelt Davis III grew up in Milwaukee, a big city in Wisconsin. Milwaukee has many people, many businesses, and many schools. Some parts of the city are safe, while others have crime. Roosevelt lived in one of the rougher areas. He did not finish school. He had trouble following rules. He did not have a job. Instead of working to earn money the right way, he wanted fast cash. He started hanging out with bad people who also made bad choices. In his teenage years, Roosevelt got into trouble with the police. He was caught stealing before. He was also known for getting angry quickly. He did not like being told what to do. Some people said he did not trust others and often stayed quiet. Roosevelt's biggest crime before the murder happened on December 25th, 2024, Christmas Day. While many families were celebrating, Roosevelt was planning something dangerous. That day, he robbed a bank in Milwaukee. He walked into the bank, wearing dark clothes. He had a gun. He pointed it at the workers and told them to give him money. The workers were scared, so they did what he said. He took a large amount of money and ran away before the police arrived. The police started looking for him, but Roosevelt had a plan. He did not stay in Milwaukee. He wanted to leave town quickly before they could catch him. He used the stolen money to buy things for his next crime. After robbing the bank, Roosevelt needed to disappear. He decided to travel to another state where no one knew him. He picked Kentucky. He used some of the stolen money to buy a bus ticket. But before he left, he also bought a few other things: guns, camouflage clothes, and other supplies. It seemed like he was preparing for something big. He traveled over 400 miles from Milwaukee to Springfield, Kentucky. It was a long trip, but Roosevelt stayed quiet. He did not talk to many people. He had a plan in his head, and he was getting ready to follow through with it. Roosevelt was not just running from the police. He had something else in mind. He had picked a target, Kadesha Burch. It is not clear why Roosevelt chose Kadesha. The two did not have a close relationship. But what is clear is that he had thought about what he was going to do. He had a plan. When he arrived in Kentucky, he did not wait long. He went straight to Springfield, a small town where people felt safe. He found Kadesha's home. It was nighttime. The streets were quiet. People were inside their houses. No one expected what was about to happen. Roosevelt forced his way into Kadesha's home. He had his gun with him. Inside the house, Kadesha was with her mother, Frances Campbell. What happened next was quick and violent. Roosevelt fired about 10 shots. Kadesha was hit and died from her injuries. Her mother, Frances, was also shot but survived. After the shooting, Roosevelt did not stay. He left the house and tried to escape. He did not care about the people he hurt. He just wanted to get away. But the police were already searching for him. They knew about the bank robbery, and now they knew about the shooting. They found him during a traffic stop in Shelbyville, Kentucky. He was arrested and taken to jail. Now, Roosevelt Davis III is facing serious charges: murder, attempted murder, and burglary. He will have to stand trial for what he did. This is the story of a man who made bad choices. He could have lived a normal life, but instead, he chose crime. Now, he will spend the rest of his life facing the consequences of his actions. The police in Springfield, Kentucky, knew they had to act fast. A woman, 31-year-old Kadesha Burch, had been shot and killed inside her own home. Her mother, Frances Campbell, had also been shot but survived. The killer had escaped, and the town was in shock. When officers arrived at the crime scene, they started looking for clues. The first step was to check for any signs of forced entry. The door was broken, showing that someone had forced their way inside. The police found bullet casings on the floor, which meant the shooter had used a gun. Neighbors told the police they had heard loud noises, gunshots, coming from Kadesha's home. Some said they saw a man leaving the house quickly after the shots were fired. He was wearing dark clothing. The police asked if anyone had security cameras outside their homes. Luckily, one neighbor had a doorbell camera. When the police checked the footage, they saw a man running from the house and getting into a car. This was their first big clue. The police had to figure out who this man was and where he had gone. Inside the house, detectives looked for more clues. They found bullet shells on the floor, which they sent to a lab for testing. The bullets matched a specific type of gun. If they could find the gun, they could prove who used it. The police also searched for fingerprints. They checked the doorknob, walls, and any object that might have been touched. If the killer had left behind fingerprints, they could compare them with a database of known criminals. Kadesha's mother, Frances, was taken to the hospital. Even though she was in pain, she was able to speak. She told the police that a man broke into the house and started shooting. She did not know him, but she remembered what he looked like. The police needed more information, so they checked Kadesha's phone and messages. They wanted to know if she had been in contact with anyone suspicious. After searching, they did not find any clear threats or warnings. Then, a big clue came from another state. The police learned that a man named Roosevelt Davis III had robbed a bank in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, just a few days before Kadesha's murder. The stolen money was used to buy guns and camouflage clothing. The police believed this was the same man who had broken into Kadesha's home. Investigators checked the security camera footage from the Milwaukee bank robbery. The man in the video looked similar to the one seen running from Kadesha's home. Now, the police had a name and a face. They put out an alert to search for Roosevelt Davis III. After identifying Roosevelt Davis as the suspect, police had to find him. They checked records of hotels, rental cars, and bus stations. They needed to know where he had gone after the murder. The breakthrough came when officers in Shelbyville, Kentucky, spotted a car that matched the one seen in the security footage. It was parked at a gas station. The police approached carefully. When they got closer, they saw a man sitting inside. He looked like Roosevelt Davis. The officers asked the man for his ID. When he handed it over, they confirmed that it was Roosevelt Davis III. They ordered him to step out of the car. Davis tried to run, but the police were faster. They caught him and placed him in handcuffs. Inside the car, police found a gun. It was the same type of gun used in Kadesha's murder. They also found dark clothing that matched what the suspect was wearing in the security footage. Now that Roosevelt Davis was in custody, the police had enough evidence to charge him. The bullet casings from the crime scene matched his gun. The security footage showed him leaving Kadesha's house. The stolen money from the Milwaukee bank robbery linked him to the crime. Roosevelt Davis was taken to jail and charged with murder for killing Kadesha Burch, attempted murder for shooting her mother, Frances Campbell, burglary for breaking into their home. The case against him was strong. The police had the weapon, the fingerprints, the security footage, and a witness who survived. The investigation was complete. The police had tracked the killer, gathered the evidence, and finally caught Roosevelt Davis in Shelbyville. Now, it was up to the court to decide his fate. Kadesha Burch's family was heartbroken. They could not believe she was gone. Her mother, Frances, was still in the hospital, recovering from her injuries. The family had many questions. Why did this happen? Why did Roosevelt Davis choose their home? There were no clear answers. Springfield, Kentucky is a small town. Everyone knows each other. When people heard about Kadesha's murder, they were shocked. Things like this did not happen in their town. People talked about how kind Kadesha was. They remembered her smile and the way she helped others. Many people were sad and angry. They wanted justice for Kadesha. The police worked hard to make sure Roosevelt Davis was caught. The people in town wanted to feel safe again. To honor Kadesha, the community organized a candlelight vigil. More than 100 people came. They lit candles and stood together. Some people spoke about Kadesha and shared memories of her. After the vigil, there was a balloon release. People released balloons into the sky to remember Kadesha. It was a way for the town to say goodbye to her. Kadesha's family needed help with funeral expenses. A GoFundMe campaign was created to raise money. Many people donated. In a short time, over $10,000 was raised. The money helped the family pay for the funeral and other costs. It also showed how much the community cared about Kadesha. People in town supported the family in other ways, too. They brought food, sent messages, and helped in any way they could. The town came together during this difficult time. Roosevelt Davis was in jail. He was facing serious charges. The court would decide his punishment. People in Springfield wanted justice for Kadesha. They wanted to make sure the killer was held responsible. The legal process would take time, but the community was watching closely. Kadesha Burch's life was taken too soon. She was a kind person who did not deserve what happened to her. Her family, friends, and town will always remember her. The crime shocked Springfield, but it also brought people together. The town stood by Kadesha's family. They supported them in every way they could. Justice was on its way. The police caught the killer. The legal system would decide what happened next. But no matter what, Kadesha's memory would live on. Her story is a reminder that crime can happen anywhere, even in small towns. It is also a reminder that communities can come together to support each other in hard times. Kadesha Burch's life was taken too soon. She did not deserve what happened to her. Her family and community will always remember her as a kind and loving person. This case is a reminder of how violent crime can affect innocent people. It shows why it is important to stay aware of dangers in our surroundings. Even though Kadesha is gone, her memory will live on. People will continue to honor her life and share her story. First-degree murder is punishable by life in prison, possibly the death penalty, depending on state laws. Because a crime happened in Kentucky, where the death penalty is legal, Roosevelt Davis III could face either life in prison or the death penalty if found guilty. Attempted murder is when someone tries to kill another person but does not succeed. Even if the victim survives, the person who committed the act can still be punished as if they had completed the murder. Why was Roosevelt Davis III charged with attempted murder? Frances Campbell, Kadesha's mother, was shot during the attack. Even though she survived, Roosevelt intended to kill her just like he killed Kadesha. He fired multiple shots, showing that he was not just trying to scare her, but to end her life. Punishment for attempted murder. Attempted murder is a Class B felony in Kentucky. If found guilty, Roosevelt could face 10 to 20 years in prison, longer if there are additional charges. If Frances had died from her injuries, this charge would have been changed to another murder charge. Burglary happens when someone enters a building illegally, especially to commit a crime inside. In this case, Roosevelt Davis III did not have permission to enter Kadesha's home. He forced his way in with a gun and committed violent crimes. Why was he charged with burglary? He broke into Kadesha's home without permission. He came inside with a gun, which shows he planned to commit a crime. He killed one person and injured another while inside. In Kentucky, burglary is a serious crime, especially when someone is armed or commits violence after breaking in. Burglary in the first degree, when someone enters a home with a weapon and commits a violent act, is a Class B felony. This means Roosevelt could face 10 to 20 years in prison. If he is found guilty of both attempted murder and burglary, his sentence could be even longer. After Roosevelt was arrested, he was taken to Shelby County Detention Center. There he was booked, meaning police took his fingerprints, mugshot, and personal information. He was also officially charged with murder, attempted murder, and burglary. Roosevelt will have to appear in court multiple times. His first appearance was likely an arraignment, where the judge read the charges against him and asked if he pleads guilty or not guilty. If Roosevelt pleads not guilty, his case will go to trial. A jury will listen to all the evidence and decide if he is guilty. During the trial, the prosecutor will try to prove that Roosevelt planned and committed the crimes. The defense attorney will try to argue that he is not guilty or should receive a lighter punishment. If the jury finds Roosevelt guilty, the judge will decide his punishment. There are 3 possible outcomes in this case. If the jury believes he is dangerous and should never be free again, he may receive life in prison. This means he will stay in jail forever. If the court decides that his crime was extremely cruel, he may face the death penalty. However, this is rare and only happens in the worst cases. If he is not given life or the death penalty, he will likely serve at least 30 to 50 years in prison. This depends on whether he is convicted of all 3 charges. This case is important because it shows how serious violent crimes are. It also reminds people that justice must be served when someone takes an innocent life. Kadesha's family lost a loved one forever. Frances Campbell survived, but will always carry the trauma of that night. The community of Springfield will never forget this tragic event. This case will serve as an example of why violent criminals must be punished. If Roosevelt Davis III is convicted, it will show that murderers cannot escape justice. Roosevelt Davis III committed a terrible crime. He traveled from Wisconsin to Kentucky, broke into Kadesha Burch's home, and killed her. He also tried to kill her mother, Frances Campbell. For these crimes, he faces serious charges, including murder, attempted murder, and burglary. The legal process will decide his punishment. If convicted, he may spend the rest of his life in prison or even face the death penalty. The case of Kadesha Burch is a tragic reminder of how one act of violence can change many lives forever. If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions. Thank you for joining us on this journey to seek justice and explore the truth. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.